The second stage of the Tour de France was another tournament for the sprinters yesterday. This time Wilfred Nelis won and gave Belgium the lead in the race for the first time in 8 years. Hello again everybody, and welcome this morning to the old port of Vannes. And it was here yesterday where Wilfred Nelis got the greatest win of his career. You know, these past few years Belgium has been starved of success when it used to be the top cycling nation in the world. So I'm not surprised that last night at the Belgian hotel Wilfred Nelis was a very happy man, as James Richardson found out.
Out of the Nove Mail team's accommodation, the riders were winding down as the bikes were prepared for the next day's racing. As you may expect, Wilfred was in a radiant mood, pulling on his factory-fresh yellow jersey for our cameras, and in the excitement of his win, almost forgetting his sponsor's hat. Nelis hails from Limburg, the same town, funnily enough, as Eric van der Arden, the last Belgian to sport the maillot jaune. He's just 23, winning yellow in only his second tour, with a victory that's all the more impressive when you look at the sprinters he outraced, names like Bugno and Cipollini.
It's very good. I try a month to beat Cipollini now in the Tour de France. It's good. You feel it inside. I'm gonna win. That's formidable.
A glass of champagne was provided for Wilfred to toast that winning feeling, but he downplayed any talk of celebrations.
No, I don't think so. I'm going to eat and then massage and then I'll go to sleep.
And so off to eat, a frugal pasta dinner and an early night, Wilfred's reward for the day's work. Probably just as well though, as whatever shirt he's wearing, he's still got 18 days hard racing in front of him.
And this morning the overall classification makes happy reading for Wilfred Nelis. He leads Miguel Indurain by 17 seconds, Mario Cipollini third, the world champion Gianni Bugno fourth, Thierry Marie, who tried so hard to win yesterday, is fifth. Of the other top names, Alex Zula is sixth, Tony Rominger, the Tour of Spain winner, is ninth, Claudio Chiappucci is 12th, Stephen Roach in his last Tour de France is lying 14th, and Eric Breukink, the Dutch champion, is 17th. But it's not such good news this morning for another Dutchman, Steven Rux. He trailed in yesterday outside of the time limit because of a stomach upset and is out of the Tour de France. He was the first Dutchman to win the King of the Mountains competition, and he also once finished second in the Tour de France. Well, on happier things, it's worth noting that 1 year today, the Tour de France will be in Great Britain, lock, stock and gears for 2 days. And later in the programme, James Richardson will update us on that. Today the riders go away from Vannes on a course which takes them due north before they swing to the northeast to the finish in Dinard, 189.5 kilometres. And now let's join Paul Sherwin for an update on the story so far.
The rollout this morning for the 176 survivors of the Tour de France came at 11:50. The ramparts around the old town of Vannes made an ideal vantage point for the Bretons to wave them off on the third stage of the Tour de France. One non-starter was Arsenio Gonzalez of the class team. He fractured his elbow in one of those crashes yesterday, and Tony Rominger's team is now reduced to just 7 men. In professional cycling, everyone respects the performances of a colleague, even when you're the world champion. Gianni Bugno has time along with Claudio Chiappucci to congratulate Wilfred Nelis on the first yellow jersey of his young career. The weather forecast for the day: a cloudy start, which will turn to clear blue skies later. A strong northeasterly wind with gusts of up to 50 kilometres an hour. The temperature around the finish is expected to drop to around 19 degrees Celsius. With Alan Piper no longer riding in the Tour de France, Neil Stevens seems ready to become the new chatty member of the Antipodean family.
Hi, Val. Look after the dog. I'll be home in 1:05 now. I'll be home in about November.
And while Neil Stevens was having fun with the cameras off the front of the bunch, it was shortly after 1 o'clock, there was an attack by 2 riders, Laurent Debian of the Castorama team and Marc Sergeant of Nelison's Novomai team.
It was actually Debian who launched the move, and Sargent went along just as a policeman. He just wants to mark the move to make sure that it doesn't get too far. He doesn't even want it to succeed. He's just there to defend the position of the team leader, Wilfred Nelis.
And Sergeant did his job well. At the time bonus sprint to Pontivy after 63 kilometres, he won the 6-second bonus ahead of Debian. The main field were over 10 minutes back. By the 80-kilometre point, they were 13 minutes and 40 seconds down. Now, the crowds in Brittany out in force today, and wouldn't it be nice if this was the sort of crowd we could expect in Kent and Sussex next year when the Tour de France comes to Britain. And the breakaway of those two riders are now within the sights of the big field as Laurent Fignon heads up the chase. There he is to the left of our picture, the great French winner of the Tour de France in 1983-84, affording us a smile. But I'll tell you, the pace has been very, very hot this last couple of hours because the breakaway of Marc Sergeant and Laurent Debian, they've been in the lead now for 115 kilometres. The gap went up, in fact, to over 13 minutes, but now it is down, Paul, to just around about a minute. It looks as though they're going to get caught.
Well, they're only just round one or two of these little corners, and it won't be long before the GBMG boys of Mario Cipollini will have them in their sights. And they've done a great job over the last couple of days bringing it all back together. In fact, interestingly enough, fantastic tactic there by the Novimai riders by putting Marc Sargent into the front group, meaning that they didn't have to chase, leaving all the onus on the GB boys to do all the work.
Now, we hope you're enjoying our coverage of the Tour de France this year, but if you do have any particular questions you would like to ask either Paul Sherwin or me, then here is a telephone number for us, and you can call on this number. It is 071 631 4444, and your questions will be relayed to us here out in France. And there is Cyril Guimard, who's trained more winners of the Tour de France than any other manager, and now talking to his latest protégé, Laurent Debian, a new professional and winner recently of the 4 days of Dunkirk. Well, the MG boys have got control of the front. They can now sense their quarry is only just up the road, and watch out for Cipollini. He's wearing the green jersey as leader of the race on points, but he isn't in fact the leader because that honour befalls the man in the yellow jersey today, Wilfred Nelis, but obviously he can't wear both jerseys, and so the green jersey is being worn by the second man in that competition, which at the moment is Mario Cipollini. There's the rainbow jersey, the man who is the world champion, Gianni Bugno, who's won it for the last 2 years and is riding a very, very good Tour de France so far.
Well, 1 kilometre to the sprint there, I think I saw the sign, and it looks as if these two riders will stay in front for the first and second place in that bonus sprint. But it'll be interesting to see behind if Mario Cipollini does take up the challenge and go for the 2-second bonus for third place.
Now, are they going to sprint it out? I don't think really Desbian is going to be too worried about the small time bonus. Marc Sergeant might want to collect it and keep it in the team of the Novomai, because it's the same team as Nelson. He already has won one today at Pontivy after 63 kilometres. We're now 105 kilometres further along the road, and the same two riders in the lead. 100 metres to the line, and I think Desbian is not going to bother Paul.
I don't think you contest this sprint, because earlier in the day Marc Sargent did let him have the 2 King of the Mountains points. He went over those in first place, and that gave him probably the lead in the Mountains classification, so he's let Sargent go through there in first place. But what's going to be interesting now is to look back down the road and see who takes up the challenge and to go for the 2-second sprint, and it could be quite an exciting sprint, because even Jamaluddin Abdjaparov would like to try and get up there and get a few seconds.
Well, let's hope that our French hosts here will swing this down. There they are, and it looks as though Laurent Jalabert has gone under the banner there in third place, taking the 2 seconds bonus. So Cipollini now cannot take the lead if he wins the stage, unless there is a time gap on the line today, and the MG boys again are attacking to try and finish off this breakaway. And so there are the two riders out in front. They've thrown out the towel, I think. They're now awaiting the arrival of the big peloton, so the breakaway will shortly be over. And for the third day in succession, I think we're lining up for a terrific sprint finish. And so we'll take a break.
Welcome back. Well, while the action continues to heat up over in France, I'm on the wrong side of the channel. I'm at Dover Castle in Kent, and I'm standing at the very point, roughly, where in 12 months' time the Tour de France will kick off a historic series of races. Yes, the Tour de France is coming to Britain. 2 stages of the world's greatest bicycle race will be held here on the south coast next year on the 6th and 7th of July. It'll all begin here in Dover, it'll move on to Brighton and then finish in Portsmouth, where after a loop of the town, the cyclists will get on the ferry back to France for the next day's racing. The entire Tour circus of 200 riders, 3,500 people, 1,500 cars, and it is to be hoped the flying profiterole will cross the water to celebrate the opening of the Channel Tunnel. Well, that's the plan anyway. The man who's in charge of organising this continental invasion is Alan Rushton.
Well, we've been looking at it for some years. Since in the last 10 years, really, British cycling has pepped up tremendously with Channel 4's coverage, and most of the big names of world cycling now ride in the UK a few times a year, and our expertise has grown as well over that time, and so the time is just right. It's a very logical time to be doing it.
The Tour has already had some pretty interesting international interludes. In 1987 it was West Berlin back in its divided days, and last year San Sebastian provided a backdrop for all the cycling. With the riders now regularly taking air transfers, there's even been talk of holding stages of the race in New York and Washington. More recently, Montreal was mentioned as well. But none of those ideas have so far seen the light of day. Here on its home continent, though, crossing borders has been no obstacle for the Tour. Last year, for example, the race passed through a record 7 countries to celebrate the year of European unity.
The Tour periodically goes into Belgium and Holland and Germany, Italy, etc. and Spain, and we would like to think that it will periodically come back to Britain, and so the efforts that we're all making and the expertise that we're building up will pay off again and again, we hope.
Next year won't be the first time that the Tour has ventured here. 1974 saw a brief sortie to Devon, where a closed circuit stage was held up and down the Plimpton bypass. Rushton promises, though, that this time it'll be bigger and better, and certainly an impressive itinerary has been cooked up. Starting on the 6th of July at Dover Castle, the peloton will pedal its way through Kent and Sussex to finish at Brighton. Then the next day sees the riders hit Hampshire, Portsmouth, the start point for a 120-mile loop, which returns to the town for a seafront finish. After that, it's back to France for the next day's racing. And indeed, time for us now to return to France to catch up with this year's Tour.
And so the Tour de France is now heading not towards the coast of Sussex, but in fact the coast of northern Brittany. And the riders are all together now, and again the MG boys of Mario Cipollini have got control of this field, and the pace they are setting right now has put half of this race in real trouble at the back.
In fact, I just caught a glimpse there of Eric Brooking getting shelled out at the back there. They really have put the pressure on over the last few kilometres, and they want to make sure that there isn't a little breakaway like there was the other day. In fact, although Mario Cipollini was in that, I think they want to keep the whole field together so that Cipollini has his best chance of winning the sprint. And there is the 10 kilometre to go banner, so 10 kilometres to go for these riders now.
And a tight fit it is too, Paul, as the riders try now to slow down at the back. You have real problems when you race at the back of these big fields, because the leaders are through so quickly, while the middle of the field has to slow down, and that always makes it much harder for the riders at the back to keep in contention. These are the men now in control of today's stage of the Tour de France, and there's the yellow jersey now of Wilfred Nelis, about 6 or 7 men back, positioning himself yet again for a good finish.
Definitely, he's one of the top sprinters as well. In fact, he's had 9 second places this year, and 4 of those were behind Mario Cipollini, so I think he'll be able to try and prove that he is a good sprinter, and as good as the man who claims to be the fastest man in the world, Super Mario. One interesting thing today, though, we haven't seen very much of the Banesto team at the front. They've been playing their cards very well. They've let the teams, as the last couple of days, of the sprinters do all the work, because they're thinking on to tomorrow when we have the big team time trial, which is an important race for the teams of the riders who want to win the Tour de France overall.
And just talking about the team time trial, Paul, tomorrow the class team, which has Tony Rominger, the winner of the Tour of Spain for the last 2 years, on their squad. They're going to start 2 men down now, because today they also lost Arsenio Gonzalez. When he got to the finish yesterday, he went to hospital after a crash. It was discovered overnight he had in fact broken his elbow. He was withdrawn this morning, so that team will take on the team time trial 2 men down. That could be a great disadvantage tomorrow to Tony Rominger. But the main field, now you get some idea of the speed over the ground of the big bunch in the Tour de France. They wind their way now onto the shoreline of Brittany. There's a large crowd awaiting them right through to the finish now. And the riders at the front have control of the race. They've blocked off the whole road as they fill it up, as they turn now onto the shoreline. It's an area which has seen the Tour de France many times before. And there over the far side, I think we caught a glimpse there of San Malo.
Just to exaggerate the point we made earlier about the difference between professional racing and amateur racing, people are really always amazed at the speed of a professional bunch in the closing kilometres. Early on they may potter along at 25 kilometres an hour, but you can be sure the average speed is around about 60 kilometres an hour at the moment, and all the time they have to be aware of those little directional islands when you come off a bridge or you come into a town. You've got to be on your guard all the time because the field can split, and if you don't follow the man in front of you, you could get one of those directional signs right in the middle of the face.
This is Eric van der Orden, I think, launching an attack. The rider who was the last man to wear the yellow jersey for Belgium in 1985 until yesterday, when Wilfred Nelis won that pleasure, and he, in fact, van der Orden is last overall in the Tour de France. Well, that's Perini who's come up in second place, the leader of the Moberly team, and van der Orden has given an awful lot of effort to try and break them away. He's got the gap now. Has he got the legs to stay in touch? The other rider is a Lamprey rider who's tagged on at the back. Well, Perini certainly isn't a great sprinter, but he is a very good, what they call a stayer. But look at this, people coming on the back all the time and somebody else launching down the outside.
It's like one of the Carrera riders going again.
Well, they've obviously worked it out, Paul, that they cannot beat Mario Cipollini in a fair sprint, so they're going to loosen him up before they get to the finish.
Well, it's the only possibility. The man is so fast. He's won so many sprints this year, and from positions that have been almost impossible. A little sign there from the Carrera rider at the front. Come on, we've got the gap. Let's keep it going. Perini trying to get round there, but it looks to me as if there are a lot more riders coming back up there.
And just look the damage it's done to the main field here, this long climb as they come up towards the finish. This looks like Claudio Chiappucci. Chiappucci himself, the man that you can't keep down. He must have known about this little climb, and Claudio Chiappucci now on the attack at 3 kilometres to go. The Carrera boys have a plan today. They'll launch another attack on the other side of the road.
Well, that's Lars Sorensen, and he was followed smartly there by one of the Motorola riders, and again it's TVM coming up there. Fourth place is Lance Armstrong in the American Champions jersey, but Sorensen really riding excellently at the moment, and the Carrera team is a team that we're going to have to be very careful of over the next few days.
Well, this is superb attacking riding now. Is this Jesper Skibby who's making his run here for Denmark? Sorensen has missed the wheel there of Skibby, and Phil Anderson too. And this looks like the familiar crouch figure of Jesper Skibby who's going away. Well, for the first time ever, Danish television transmitting 70 hours coverage of the Tour de France this year, and every day we have been treated to the Danish riders on the attack in the last couple of kilometres. The first day it was Bjorn Ries, then it was Jürgen Sorensen, and now it is Jesper Skibby.
They really have been putting the show on for the home crowd, but Skibby, actually it's nice to see him at the front here attacking, because he had an exceptionally bad crash earlier on in the year with a bad head injury, and it was as if he was going to be out for the whole season, but he came back in the Tour of Luxembourg and almost immediately he was on the attack, and here with less than 2 kilometres to go now, it looks as if he's been reeled in, but you can see everybody still wanting to attack.
Indeed, that crash in the Tirreno Adriatico race in March in Italy, at one stage doctors did fear that Jesper Skibby would lose his life, but as you can see, he's recovered fully. He's won a stage in the recent Tour of Italy, and Lance Armstrong goes on the far side. The 21-year-old American champion won the title just a couple of weeks ago, has gone, but immediately the Italians have got his wheel and not willing to work, and Jesper Skibby demanding more effort as Cipollini's boys in white are trying to get back into some sort of control on this race, but where perfect have gone again. That's Jelle Nydam, who's now gone on the far side. Jelle Nydam, nobody is going to allow Cipollini any more armchair rides to the finish line, that's for sure.
Well, that's an excellent tactic. That's the only way I think that you can beat this man. He is so rapid. If he comes to the finish line in 10th or 12th position, he's so fast he can move up there, but it looks as if that attack by Nydam as we go under the red kite with 1 kilometre to go was not good enough, and the whole field is together. He has to keep the speed up now, and maybe his teammate there will be in his wheel. It looks as if there's another word perfect man. It may be Frederic Moncassin, but you can be sure now that Abdou Jafarov will be moving up, and Mario Cipollini won't be too far away.
Nydam sits up, swings off. In fact, the yellow jersey is there, so too is the green jersey of Cipollini. They are both there. You can see Cipollini, his white sunglasses, got the wheel of the yellow jersey, Nelson, So it's one-on-one for the men who've won the 2 previous stages of this year's Tour de France. They are now together. Advantage Cipollini, surely he's on the back wheel there of the yellow jersey of Nelson. Of 400 metres to go now. Olaf Ludwig is at the front too. The former Olympic Games champion is sold in 1988. Ludwig in the centre of picture. Now they're swinging across. Nelson in second place. Cipollini is waiting. This could be Cipollini's stage now if he opens up his firepower. And Abdul-Jafarov comes on Cipollini's shoulder. Cipollini, Abdul-Jafarov, Wilfred Nelis, the 3 fastest men in the world, neck and neck. Abdul-Jafarov's turn today. Abdul-Jafarov gets the stage. What a tremendous 3 days of racing this Tour de France has been. First it was Cipollini, then it was Wilfred Nelis, and today, deservedly so, Abdul-Jafarov and the 3 fastest men in the world have taken the 3 places on the line. This has been a superb finish to the Tour de France today. And there you can see it. This time the little man, the Tashkent Terror, was having none of it. They kept Cipollini tight in the middle on the 2 sprinters there, and then Abdul-Jafarov didn't waver off his line at all, and Cipollini must have wondered what was wrong with his legs. For the first time in 3 days he wasn't going forward, he was locked there and right behind the wheel of Jamaluddin Abdul-Jafarov. And this must have been about the hottest sprint you ever will see. The little man takes it on the line this time. Jamaluddin Abdul-Jafarov finishing ahead of Wilfred Nelis, Mario Cipollini and the former champion of Belgium, Johan Capio. And you don't see him smile very often, but he's smiled now. It's one relief, I think. He's finally got over the finishing line on his wheels and in first place. Overall, Nelson keeps his yellow jersey, slightly increases his lead ahead of Cipollini. Indurain still very much in the frame, as too is Gianni Bugno. But Wilfred Nelis tonight and for Belgium keeps the jersey for a second day, and Paul Sherwin is right with him.
Wilfred, it was a good day by the team today. They did an excellent job with Mark Sargent in the front to keep the yellow jersey for you.
Yeah, Walter Planka said this morning you must go with every attack one man, and that was good. Mark Sargent was gone for the bonifications. Just I don't need to sprint. Just I must look at Cipollini. He has not to take bonification. And then in the sprint I was good, but I was not in so good position. I was too quick in the front, and that was difficult for me to win.
You've still got the yellow jersey, but a little bit upset because you didn't win the stage again?
No, I'm not upset. I'm very happy I have the yellow jersey.
And don't forget, all of the results of today's stage can be found on page 350 on Fortel. Let me remind you now about our quiz. We'd like you to name the winner of the stage on Sunday, and you could be then the lucky recipient of the leader's yellow jersey in the Tour de France signed by him. You can make your entries by telephone. This is the number 0839 444554, or if you prefer by postcard, but it must reach us by Friday of this week, to Tour de France competition, Fortel, 142 Lower Marsh, London, SE1 7AE. Well, tomorrow the Tour de France will be out in team formation for the time trial to Avranches, the 20 teams racing against the clock, and there could well be a change in the overall leadership. But today we saw the riders in full cry over those last 10 kilometres. They tried everything to outwit the sprinters, and in the end they didn't. What a great sprint finish it was, especially so for Jamaluddin Abdul-Jafarov. From Paul Sherwin, James Richardson and me, Phil Liggett, until tomorrow, goodbye.